Disclaimer, I have tried my best to be objective, but at the end of the day, this is still my opinion. If you have different opinions about this topic, that's cool too. Oh, and one other thing, a lot of you who watch these videos of mine aren't actually subscribed to my channel, and with YouTube's algorithm being what it is, subscribing, liking, sharing, doing all that fun stuff really helps me out, so consider it, please. Some rules that were followed in the making of this list. Number 1. The character in question is known only for being a legacy character. So guys like, the Eric Masterton Thor or John Paul Valley as Batman are excluded because they have more memorable tenures as other characters. And the second rule is a bad legacy character is slightly better than a forgettable legacy character. Number 5, the second Pyro, Simon Lasker. Now, the reason this dude is low on the list, it's probably because of the fact that he's fairly new and still has some potential to be great. After all, he has superior powers compared to his predecessor and willingly chose to walk away from supervillainy to become an X-Man. The problem here is his predecessor had one of the most impactful deaths in X-Men history, where he chose to fight against his former teammates in the service of the greater good, despite still technically being a supervillain at the time. And he's recently been resurrected and is a main character in one of the X-Men books, while poor Simon has been pushed to the background. His most recent appearance, I believe, was in an issue of X-Force, which, being pushed to the background is the kiss of death for any legacy character. So he makes the list. Number 4, the fifth Venom, Lee Price. Before I begin, I would like to say I think I get what Marvel was trying to do. For most of the previous Venoms, the symbiote was a negative influence which the host would either overcome or succumb to. However, this time the role was flipped, where the symbiote had undergone character development during its time bonded with Flash Gordon and now wanted to do good. Lee Price, on the other hand, wanted to use the symbiote to make a name for himself as a criminal. Interesting idea, but the execution did not work out at all. The symbiote would soon return back to Eddie Brock, and Lee Price would flail around for some time before dying. Another common fate for legacy characters. Number 3, Aquaman 2, Arthur Joseph Curry. DC is generally good at creating legacy characters. Their treatment is a whole separate issue, but they are generally good at creating them. But woo boy, did they drop the ball on this guy. Arthur Joseph was created to be the new Aquaman after the original had mysteriously disappeared, as you do. His backstory was a cheeky nod to the Golden Age origin of Aquaman, but that's the only interesting part of his story. Throughout his existence, all he did was complain about how he was not the previous Aquaman. And then he quit. The original returned, and he was never seen again. Number 2, Nick Fury Jr. Yes, I know his name is Marcus, but come on. So this is complicated, but I'm going to try my best to simplify it, and by the time I'm done, you'll know why Marcus is on this list. So, Nick Fury is the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the main Marvel universe where, most of Marvel's comics are published. In the 2000s, Marvel created its ultimate imprint of comics, separate universe and all that, and its Nick Fury was based on Samuel L. Jackson and was very popular. So popular that by the time the MCU rolled around, Jackson was hired to play the character, which made Ultimate Nick Fury even more popular. But here's the problem. The main Marvel Universe's Nick Fury does not look like Samuel L. Jackson, so the mainstream comics weren't ready to exploit his newfound popularity. Ergo, it was revealed that Nick Fury had a son named Marcus who just happened to look like Samuel L. Jackson, and the mainstream Nick Fury became the Watcher. Do I really need to elaborate any further? And finally, the number 1 worst legacy character is Angelo Fortunato, the second Venom. Why yes, another Venom host is the worst legacy character. But what makes him worse than Lee Price, I hear you ask? 2 words: daddy issues. His Magia-Don father bought the Venom symbiote for him at an auction so that he would stop being a spoiled brat and disappointment to his family. So he used the Venom symbiote to fight Spider-Man until he accidentally killed a cosplayer who was dressed up as Spider-Man, after which Spider-Man started beating the crap out of him. Once he started running away, his thoughts were still about, oh no, I've disappointed my father, and the Venom symbiote just abandoned him out of disgust. Unfortunately for him, he was swinging in mid-air when this happened. Oh, and the kicker, all of what I just described, this happened in only 2 issues. This pathetic loser lasted all of 2 issues. Price lasted a lot longer than that, my friends. So, that's my take on the worst legacy characters in comics. Some of these legacy characters are just forgettably bad, but they are part of a comic book history, so bad or otherwise, they do deserve to be remembered, at least just to make sure that the mistakes aren't repeated.